I have never thought I would now feel like a stranger to my own wife. All in the name of her having a man as bestie.
Gideon was standing outside a cafe in Victoria Island, holding a small red gift bag with a silver ribbon. Inside the cafe, his wife Esther was laughing, sitting close to another man. Her hand was resting on his arm, and she said something that made Gideon's heart stop. "You are the only one who truly knows me, Daniel. Sometimes I feel like I married a stranger." Gideon felt the air leave his chest. A stranger. In his own marriage. His first wedding anniversary was in 3 days. Valentine's Day was just around the corner. And he had planned everything. He had booked a private dinner at a rooftop restaurant in Ikoyi. He had ordered a gold necklace with her name on it. He had even taken leave from work without telling her. He wanted to surprise her. But now, he stood frozen outside the glass door, or watching his wife smile at another man in a way she had not smiled at him for months. And then Esther leaned forward and whispered something into Daniel's ear. Gideon dropped the gift bag, and at that exact moment, Esther turned and saw him. Her face changed, not with guilt, but with shock. 3 months earlier, Gideon and Esther lived in a neat 2-bedroom flat in Lekki Phase 1. They had been married for 9 months. Their wedding had been beautiful. Friends and family danced. Gideon cried when he said his vows. Esther held his hand tightly and promised him forever. But after the wedding, small things began to change. It started with late-night phone calls. Esther would step out to the balcony to take them. When Gideon asked who it was, she would smile and say, "Daniel, my best friend from university. You know I told you about him." Yes, she had told him. Daniel, the male bestie. Gideon did not like the term, but he tried to be mature. Best friends are fine, he told himself. Trust your wife. Daniel lived in Lagos too. He worked in tech. He drove a black SUV. He was always helping Esther with something. Advice about her small baking business, fixing her website, picking her up when her car had issues. At first, Gideon was grateful. Then he started to notice things. When Esther had good news, she called Daniel first. When she was upset, she texted Daniel before speaking to Gideon. When she laughed loudly in the kitchen while on the phone, Gideon knew without asking who it was. One evening, Gideon tried to talk. "Esther," he said gently, "sometimes I feel like you share more with Daniel than with me." She frowned. "Gideon, please, don't start. He has been in my life for 10 years. He is like my brother." "Does he call you at midnight, like a brother?" Gideon asked quietly. She rolled her eyes. "You are being too insecure." That word stayed in his mind, insecure. Gideon worked as a financial analyst in Victoria Island. He was calm, quiet, and thoughtful. He did not shout. He did not cheat. He did not disrespect his wife. But suddenly, he felt like he was competing for space in his own home. One Saturday afternoon, Gideon came back early from work. He opened the door and heard laughter from the living room. Esther and Daniel were sitting close together on the couch. Too close. A laptop was open in front of them. "Oh, Gideon, you are back," Esther said quickly, moving slightly away. Daniel stood up with a smile. "Boss, how far?" "I was just helping Esther with some designs." Gideon forced a smile. He shook Daniel's hand. It felt firm, confident. Daniel smelled expensive. Later that night, Gideon lay awake. Esther was asleep beside him, facing the other side. He stared at the ceiling. He remembered how Esther used to turn toward him at night. Now her phone was under her pillow, on silent. Then 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, Gideon decided to do something special. He wanted to remind Esther why she chose him. He wanted to fight for his marriage. He booked a rooftop dinner at a luxury restaurant in Ikoyi overlooking the Lagos skyline. He bought a necklace engraved with Esther Adeyemi in soft gold letters. He even asked her friend Martha to help him decorate their living room with candles for the anniversary morning. "Don't worry," Martha said on the phone. "She loves you. Just show her." Gideon held on to that hope. But then something happened. One evening, Esther came home glowing. "I got an invitation to speak at a baking event on Valentine's Day," she said excitedly. "That's amazing," Gideon replied, smiling. "Yes, Daniel recommended me to the organizers. He believes in me so much." Gideon nodded, but inside, something broke. Why was it always Daniel? Why did his wife light up when she said his name? That night, Gideon checked Esther's phone. He had never done that before. He told himself it was wrong, but his hands moved anyway. He found messages, long ones, paragraphs. Daniel, sometimes I feel like you are mine. You deserve someone who truly understands you. Esther, it's complicated. Daniel, if things were different, and you know I would never let you feel alone. Gideon's hands started shaking. He scrolled further. Photos, selfies, inside jokes, memories from before she met Gideon. And then one message from Esther that made his chest tighten. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Gideon dropped the phone. He felt like the floor had opened. He walked to the mirror in the bedroom. He looked at himself. Was he boring? Was he too quiet? Was he just convenient? The next morning, he acted normal. He kissed Esther goodbye. He told her he loved her. She smiled and said, "Love you too." But her eyes looked far away. Now at the cafe in Victoria Island on Valentine's Eve, Gideon had planned to surprise her at work with flowers before their dinner the next day. He did not know she had taken half-day leave. And Martha had accidentally mentioned Esther was out with Daniel to celebrate early. Gideon felt as if someone had pressed pause on his life. The cafe noise faded. The smell of coffee faded. Even the bright Lagos sun outside the glass windows felt far away. He looked at his wife. "Let's go home," Gideon said quietly. Esther nodded once. He turned and walked out of the cafe. He did not look back. The drive from Victoria Island to Lekki felt longer than usual. No music, no small talk. Only the sound of cars and traffic horns. Esther sat beside him, holding her handbag tightly. Her phone buzzed once. She looked down at it. Gideon noticed he was tensed now, but just didn't want to go into a physical fight with a man. "Is that him?" he asked. She hesitated, then she switched the phone off. That small act should have comforted him. Instead, it hurt more. When they got home, the flat felt strange, like it did not belong to either of them. Gideon placed the red gift bag on the dining table. Esther saw it. "What is that?" she asked softly. "For you," he replied. She walked closer and opened it slowly. Inside was the gold necklace with her name. Her fingers trembled. "Gideon, for tomorrow," he said. "Valentine's Day. Our first anniversary is in 3 days. I thought we could celebrate both." Esther covered her mouth. Tears fell. "I am sorry, my husband. I did not know you had plans," she whispered. "That is the point," Gideon said gently. "You did not know." There was silence. Then he asked the question that had been burning inside him for weeks. "Are you in love with him?" Esther closed her eyes. It is not that simple." "Then make it simple," Gideon replied. "Yes or no?" She opened her eyes slowly. "I don't know." Those 3 words hurt more than a yes. Later that night, they sat opposite each other in the living room. The air felt heavy. Esther spoke first.
"Daniel and I have known each other for 10 years. We went through school together. He was there when my father was sick. He knows my dreams."
Gideon listened quietly. "And I do not?" he asked. "You do," she said quickly, "but you are different." "Different how?" "You are calm. You don't talk much. Sometimes I don't know what you are thinking." Gideon let out a small breath. "So because I am not loud, I am a stranger?" "It is not about loud," she said. "It is about connection." "And you feel more connected to him?" Esther's silence answered the question. The truth began to unfold slowly, not like a fight, like a wound opening. Esther admitted that before she met Gideon, Daniel had feelings for her. But he never said it clearly, and when Gideon came into her life, steady and serious, she chose him. "Why?" Gideon asked. "Because you were safe," she said. That word cut deeper than insecure. Safe, not loved, not chosen with passion, safe. "I thought love would grow," Esther added quickly. "And it did, in some ways, but sometimes I feel like something is missing." Gideon stood up. He walked to the window and looked outside at the quiet Lekki street. Cars passed. Life continued. Inside, his own life felt like it was falling apart. "Do you love me?" he asked without turning around. "I care about you deeply." "That is not what I asked." Esther's voice broke. Yes, I love you. But not like you love him. She did not answer. The next morning was Valentine's Day. Gideon woke up early. He did not decorate the house. He did not call Martha. He sat on the edge of the bed and watched Esther sleep. She looked peaceful, like someone who had not just shaken her marriage. He remembered their wedding day, the way she held his hand tightly, the way she promised to stand with him. Was that real, or was he always second choice? His phone buzzed. It was a message from Martha. How did the surprise go? Gideon stared at the screen. He typed back slowly. There was no surprise. By afternoon, Esther's phone rang again. Daniel. She looked at Gideon. He looked back at her. Answer it, he said calmly. She hesitated, then picked up. And hello. Gideon could not hear Daniel's voice, but he saw Esther's face change. No. Not today, she said softly. I need space. Pause. I said I need space. Another pause. Then she ended the call. She looked at Gideon. He wants to talk, she said. Of course he does, Gideon replied. He says he did not mean to hurt you. Gideon gave a short laugh. He offered you a ring, Esther? Her eyes widened. It was not what you think. Then what was it? She looked down. He said if I ever felt trapped, I should know I have options. Options. Gideon repeated that word in his mind. Options meant choices, and choices meant he was not the only one. That evening, something unexpected happened. There was a knock on the door. Esther froze. Gideon walked to the door and opened it. Daniel was standing there, in their home, in Lekki. On Valentine's Day. He looked serious. Gideon, he said calmly, we need to talk. Gideon stepped aside slowly. Come in. Esther stood up from the couch. Daniel, I told you. I know, Daniel said, but this cannot continue like this. He turned to Gideon. I have feelings for your wife. I won't lie about that. The honesty was bold and dangerous. But I never planned to disrespect your marriage, Daniel added. She came to me when she felt unheard. Gideon's jaw tightened. Unheard, he repeated. Daniel nodded. She feels alone sometimes. Gideon looked at Esther. She looked down. In that moment, Gideon realized something painful. This was not just about another man. It was about cracks that had been there quietly. Cracks he did not see. But that did not excuse this. He walked closer to Daniel. Did you ever tell her to fix her marriage? Gideon asked. Daniel was silent. That is what I thought, Gideon said quietly. The room felt smaller. 3 people, 1 marriage, 1 truth hanging in the air. Daniel took a step back. I will leave, he said, but she needs to decide what she wants. He walked toward the door, then he paused. Esther, he said gently, you deserve to feel known. The door closed. Silence. Gideon turned slowly to his wife. So, he said, do you feel known with me? Esther opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Gideon's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. For some reason, his heart began to beat fast. He answered. Hello? The voice on the other end made his blood turn cold. Good evening. Is this Mr. Gideon Adeyemi? Yes. This is regarding a transfer your wife made this morning. At a very large transfer, to Mr. Daniel Okafor. Gideon slowly lifted his eyes to Esther. She looked confused. What transfer? He asked. The voice on the phone replied calmly, 5 million naira. Gideon felt the room spin, because he knew something Esther did not. That money was from their joint anniversary savings, and only one of them had access to it that morning. He lowered the phone slowly and stared at his wife. The words still echoed in his ears. 5 million naira. From their joint anniversary savings to Daniel. He looked at Esther. Her face was pale. What transfer? She asked. Gideon put the phone on speaker. The voice repeated calmly, a transfer of 5 million naira was made this morning to Mr. Daniel Okafor from your joint account. Esther's eyes widened. I did not send any money, she said quickly. Gideon ended the call. Silence filled the room. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He simply walked to the dining table and opened his banking app. There it was, 5 million naira. Gone. Transferred at 9:12 a.m. He looked at Esther again. Where were you at 9:12 this morning? I was in the kitchen, she said softly. You were in the bedroom. That was true. He remembered hearing her move around. He remembered stepping into the shower, and he remembered leaving his phone on the bed. His password was not secret. Esther knew it. They trusted each other, or at least he thought they did. Why would I send him money? Esther asked, shaking her head. That makes no sense. Gideon did not answer. He walked to the bedroom. He opened the drawer where he kept some documents, their joint account papers, and he had added Esther to that account after their wedding. It was for their first anniversary trip. Dubai. She had always wanted to go. He sat on the edge of the bed. His mind was calm, too calm. He walked back to the living room. Call him, he said. Esther stared at him. Call Daniel, put it on speaker. Her hands trembled as she dialed. The call rang twice. Daniel answered. Esther. Daniel, she said quickly. Did you receive any money from Gideon's account? There was a short pause. Then Daniel said, Yes. The room went cold. What money? Esther asked. The 5 million, Daniel replied. You said you needed me to keep it safe. Esther stood up suddenly. I never said that. Another pause. Then Daniel's tone changed slightly. Esther, you called me this morning. You said things were getting worse. You said you needed to protect yourself in case he reacted badly. Gideon felt something heavy settle inside him. Reacted badly. He had not even raised his voice. I did not call you, Esther insisted. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said slowly, Esther, you used your number. You told me not to tell him yet. Gideon stepped forward. Daniel, he said calmly, send the money back. Now. Daniel did not respond immediately. It is not that simple, he finally said. It is exactly that simple, Gideon replied. Send it back. Daniel sighed. I will call you back. The line went dead. Esther looked at Gideon. I swear I did not do that. Gideon studied her face. He saw fear. He saw confusion. But he also saw something else. Distance. A gap between them that had been growing quietly. This is no longer about feelings, Gideon said slowly. This is about trust. That night, Gideon could not sleep. He lay on the couch in the living room. Esther stayed in the bedroom. Neither of them said good night. The next morning, Gideon went to work early, but instead of driving to his office in Victoria Island, he turned toward Ikoyi. He parked in front of a modest office building. He stepped out of the car and walked inside. The sign read, Ades and Partners, Legal Practitioners. He had called earlier. He had booked an appointment. Ades was calm, professional, and known for handling sensitive family cases quietly. Gideon sat across from her in a neat office. She listened without interrupting. He told her everything. The late calls, the messages, in the cafe, the ring, the transfer. When he finished, Ades folded her hands gently.
Mr. Adeyemi, are you considering divorce?
Gideon took a deep breath. I am considering peace, he replied. Ades nodded. In many cases, emotional affairs hurt just as much as physical ones, she said, and financial misconduct makes it more serious. Gideon stared at the table. I do not want to fight, he said quietly. If she feels safer with someone else, I will not force her to stay. I married her because I loved her, not because I wanted to trap her. Ades watched him carefully. You are prepared to let her go? He paused. The truth was painful. Yes, he said. If that is what will make her feel known, I would rather release her now than live as a stranger in my own marriage. Adesi leaned back slightly. You should know that divorce is not just emotional, it is legal. There will be division of assets, public records, family reactions. I understand. And what if the money transfer was fraud? She asked. Gideon frowned. What do you mean? Have you confirmed it was truly your wife who authorized it? He blinked. No. Adaz nodded slowly. Before you make permanent decisions, confirm the facts. Get bank statements, check call logs. If there is manipulation, you need proof. Gideon sat quietly. For the first time since the cafe, his mind shifted slightly. What if something was not adding up? But then he remembered Daniel's voice. You said you needed me to keep it safe. Safe from what? From him. Gideon stood up slowly. I want you to prepare the documents, he said calmly, just in case. Adaze nodded. I will draft them. But I advise you to have one final honest conversation with your wife before signing anything. Gideon thanked her and walked out. As he stepped into the bright Lagos afternoon, he felt something strange. Not anger, not even sadness, clarity. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Esther. We need to talk tonight, honestly, no lies, no Daniel. She replied almost immediately. Okay. When Gideon got home that evening, the flat was quiet. Esther was sitting on the couch. Her eyes were red. I went to the bank, she said softly. They said the transfer was made from your device. Gideon froze. My device? Yes, your phone. He slowly reached into his pocket and brought out his phone. He looked at it. Where is your phone? He asked. In the bedroom. Bring it. She went and returned with her phone. They both checked the call logs. At 8:47 a.m., Esther's phone had called Daniel for 3 minutes. She stared at the screen. I did not make that call. Gideon's heart began to pound. Then he checked his own call history. Nothing unusual, but when he opened his banking app, he noticed something. A fingerprint login had been used. Not his Face ID fingerprint. He slowly looked up at Esther. How many of my fingerprints are registered on this phone? She asked quietly. Just mine, Gideon said. The room felt tight again. Esther's voice trembled. Gideon, where was your phone this morning? He thought carefully. He remembered showering. He remembered stepping out to grab a towel from the wardrobe. For about 2 minutes, he left the bathroom, and his phone had been on the bed. In the bedroom, where Esther had been. He felt dizzy. Are you saying I did this? She asked. Our tears forming. I am saying the bank records show my fingerprint, he replied slowly. Silence. Then Esther whispered something that made his stomach twist. What if someone else accessed it? Gideon frowned. Who? Esther's eyes filled with fear. Daniel was here 2 days ago. You left your phone on the table when you went downstairs to pick up your food delivery. Gideon's mind raced. He remembered. It had been quick, just a few minutes. Daniel had stayed back in the living room with Esther. He felt cold. Because if that was true, then this was no longer just emotional confusion. It was something darker. Gideon looked at Esther. For the first time in weeks, he did not see distance. He saw fear. Real fear. And just as he was about to speak, his phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. We need to meet, alone. There are things you don't know. Gideon stared at the screen, then he slowly lifted his eyes to Esther. Because suddenly, this marriage was not just about feelings anymore. It might be about something far more dangerous. Gideon stared at Daniel's message again. We need to meet, alone. There are things you don't know. The words did not sound like someone who was innocent. They sounded like someone who knew too much. Esther looked at him with worry in her eyes. Are you going to meet him? She asked. Gideon did not answer immediately. He was thinking clearly now, not with jealousy, not with anger, with caution. Yes, he said finally, but not alone. The next afternoon, Gideon did something wise. Instead of replying to Daniel immediately, he called his older brother, Kunle. Kunle was practical and calm, and he worked in real estate in Surulere and had seen many family disputes turn ugly. Do not go there angry, Kunle advised over the phone, and do not go alone. This is no longer just about emotions. It is about money and trust. Gideon also told Esther to call her mother. At first, Esther hesitated. She felt ashamed. But her mother, Mrs. Okonkwo, came that same evening from Yaba. Gideon's parents also came from their home in Ikeja. Soon the living room in Lekki was filled with family. It was not a shouting gathering, it was serious. Adults sitting upright, tea untouched. Silence heavy. Mrs. Okonkwo spoke first. Esther, tell us the truth. Esther looked at her hands. She told them everything. About Daniel, about the messages, about feeling unseen sometimes, about the cafe, about the ring, and about the money transfer she insisted she did not make. Gideon's father listened quietly. When she finished, he cleared his throat. Marriage is not built on who makes you feel excited, he said slowly. It is built on who stands with you in hard times. Esther wiped her eyes. I never meant to hurt him, she said. But you did, Mrs. Okonkwo replied gently. Even if nothing physical happened, emotional closeness can still break a home. Kunle leaned forward. Esther, a married woman, does not keep a male best friend who competes with her husband. It may start innocent, but it will not end innocent. Those words hung in the air, because deep down, everyone knew it was true. The next day, Gideon agreed to meet Daniel, but he did not go alone. Kunle went with him. They chose a public place in Ikoyi. Daniel arrived looking serious, for he sat down calmly. I know why you are here, Daniel said. Good, Gideon replied. Daniel sighed. The money transfer? I did not steal it. Then why did you accept it? Kunle asked sharply. Daniel looked at Gideon. Because I believed Esther sent it. He explained that 2 days earlier he had accessed Gideon's phone briefly when Gideon stepped out. He claimed he only wanted to check something Esther had shown him about her business. But he noticed Gideon's banking app was open. He saw the balance, and something changed in him. I thought, if she ever needed to leave suddenly, she would need money, Daniel said quietly. So you planned ahead? Kunle asked. Daniel did not answer directly. I did not plan to hurt anyone, he said, but I have loved Esther for years. I thought she chose Gideon because he was safe. And I believed if I could prove I could protect her, she would see me differently. Gideon felt a mix of anger and pity. You used manipulation, Gideon said calmly. You pretended to be her safe place while slowly creating doubt in her marriage. Daniel's jaw tightened. I never forced her. No, Gideon replied. You simply made sure she felt incomplete with me. That truth was painful, but it was real. Daniel finally agreed to return the money. Within 24 hours, the full amount was transferred back. Back home, the families gathered again. This time, the mood was different. The money was returned. The danger was clear. Now the real issue had to be addressed. Trust. Mrs. Okonkwo turned to her daughter. Esther, she said firmly, you must choose your marriage clearly. No half decisions. Esther nodded slowly. I will cut ties with Daniel, she said quietly. Not slowly, Gideon's mother added, not with secret calls, completely. Esther picked up her phone, in front of everyone. She called Daniel, he answered. Esther, Daniel, she interrupted gently. This ends today. I am choosing my marriage. Please do not contact me again. There was silence. Then Daniel said softly, I understand. She ended the call. Then she blocked his number. She deleted the chats. She removed his photos. Not because she was forced, but because she finally saw what was at stake. That night, Gideon and Esther sat alone again. But this time it felt different. Not distant. Not hostile. Honest. I was wrong, Esther said softly. I thought having a best friend like that was harmless. I thought because nothing physical happened, and it was not serious. Gideon looked at her. It was serious, he said, because you gave him emotional space that belonged to me. She nodded. I felt unseen sometimes, she admitted, but instead of coming to you fully, I ran to someone who made me feel special without responsibility. Gideon swallowed. I should have spoken up earlier too, he said. I stayed quiet when I felt uncomfortable. I thought being calm was strength, but silence can create distance. They both saw their mistakes, not equal, but real. The next weeks were not magical, they were intentional. They attended marriage counseling. They created new boundaries. Phones no longer slept under pillows. Passwords were shared openly. Conversations became deeper. Not just about bills or work, about fears, about dreams, about disappointments. Gideon learned to speak more openly. Esther learned to listen more fully. They rebuilt slowly, not because it was easy, but because they chose it daily. 3 months later, something simple happened. They were in their kitchen in Lekki, cooking together, laughing softly. No tension, no hidden calls. Esther turned to Gideon.
I used to think feeling safe was boring. Now I understand that safety is peace.
With you, always.
Gideon smiled slightly. And peace is rare, he replied. She stepped closer. I am sorry for making you feel like a stranger. He looked at her carefully. Do you still? No, she said honestly. Now I see you. That was the difference. Not excitement, not competition, clarity. On their delayed anniversary dinner in Ikoyi, Gideon finally gave her the necklace. She wore it proudly, not as a symbol of ownership, but as a symbol of choice, because love is not about who makes you feel butterflies. It is about who stays when storms are inside you, and who protects the home, not competes with it. Indeed, marriage needs clear boundaries. Emotional affairs can damage a home just as deeply as physical ones. A husband or wife should not share emotional intimacy with someone outside the marriage in a way that competes with their spouse. Being best friends with someone of the opposite gender while married can create confusion, comparison, and temptation if boundaries are not firm. Communication is powerful. Silence can create space for outsiders. Family support and wise counsel can save a marriage when pride is set aside. And most importantly, feeling safe is not weakness, it is strength. Gideon almost walked away early to give Esther freedom. But freedom without truth would have left deeper scars. Instead, they faced the truth. They chose accountability, they chose boundaries, and they chose each other again. Love is not proven by grand gestures, it is proven by daily decisions, and sometimes the strongest marriages are the ones that survive what almost broke them. I'm happy you watched this story. What's your view about this story? Which city are you watching from? Kindly let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed in good health.